He's 37 years old now and plays just one of three formats, having retired from T20 internationals in 2024 and Test cricket in 2025. Still, Virat Kohli seems hungrier than ever. In his last 9 ODIs, King Kohli has risen to new heights, averaging 88 and striking at 106.4 with 350s and 300s since last year's Champions Trophy. If we exclude his 2 ducks against Australia, his average jumps up to 123. In what appears to be the last phase of Kohli's stellar career, where he now sits at 85 international centuries, one question remains. Can Virat surpass Sachin Tendulkar's record of 100 international centuries in a career? I built a machine learning simulation from scratch, pulling ball-by-ball data of Kohli's ODI career and engineering 17 statistical features before running simulations to answer this exact question, and the answer might surprise you. Briefly, I built 3 probability models that predict the conditional probability of Kohli scoring a century in each of the upcoming ODI fixtures, given the context of each game. These per-match probabilities then feed into a Monte Carlo simulation that produces a distributional estimate of his career century total. For each of the 17 upcoming ODIs, which we expect Kohli to play, the models use a 5% probability that Kohli is unavailable to account for any surprise injuries or selection issues causing Kohli to miss out on any game. Given he recently missed out on the 3 ODIs against Afghanistan due to a hamstring injury, the 5% band of uncertainty became all the more important to include. The models are trained on 17 statistical features that can be categorized into 3 buckets: recent form features, opposition and venue features, and match context features. You could read more about the model architecture at BailsOffCrit.com, link in description. Here's what the models had to say. In the next 7 months, the BCCI has confirmed 17 ODI fixtures, with 3 away in England, 3 at home against the West Indies, 5 away in New Zealand, and 3 each against Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe at home respectively. We begin with the England series, with ODIs beginning from July 14th. In 38 innings against the English, Kohli averages 41.08, his second lowest against any single international team, managing 300s at a strike rate of 88.25. His numbers drop further when playing England in their backyard, averaging just 38.73 in 16 innings at 86.32, with 1 century and 4 50s there. His last white ball tour of England came in 2022, in the middle of what was the leanest phase of Kohli's prolific career. Since then, however, Kohli has revamped his white ball batting with a far more proactive and aggressive approach. In those 4 years, England's bowling attack has changed drastically. In fact, among the picked bowlers, Kohli has only faced Adil Rashid more than once in ODIs, and has personally referred to the leggy as the most challenging bowler he has faced in the format. In his 10 innings against Rashid, he has been dismissed 5 times, averaging 22, with a dot ball percentage of 38.5. This will be a significant question mark for Kohli to answer. The tour begins at Edgbaston, where Kohli boasts an impeccable record averaging 111.7 and striking at 107.0 in his 7 innings. Kohli shines here with the second highest match factor at 2.69, averaging a whopping 169% higher while striking at a rate 15% quicker than the average top 6 batter in his 7 games at Edgbaston. However, these games weren't just against England, with 4 of these 7 games coming against Pakistan and Bangladesh across the 2013 and 2017 Champions Trophies as well as the 2019 Cricket World Cup. Kohli maintains a strong record at Cardiff too, with 196 runs in 4 innings at a strike rate of 97.5 along with 1 century. He averages 59% better and strikes 11% quicker than the average top 6 batter in his 4 games at Sophia Gardens. However, Kohli last played an ODI here over a decade ago, in a 2014 white ball tour to England. The ODIs finish at Lord's, where Kohli has the most concerning record. In his 3 innings at the home of cricket, he managed just 77 runs at 65.8, with a match factor average of 0.79 and a match factor strike rate of 0.79. Of course, the last of these games came 4 years ago in 2022, and Lord's will be an intriguing challenge for the Kohli of 2026. Here's a discrete probability distribution of Kohli's chances of scoring centuries in his ODI tour of England, based on a Monte Carlo simulation of the model's predictions. The expected value of his centuries is 0.453, due to the fact that he's predicted to have an overwhelming 61% chance of scoring 0 centuries on this tour. Looking at game-by-game probabilities, Kohli has the best predicted chance of scoring a century in the first ODI at Edgbaston, with an average probability of 20% across the 3 models. His history here is strong, but given the 6-month break since his last ODI and nearly 2 months since any professional game, as well as over 7 years since his last game at this venue, his chances are slightly nullified. His average predicted probability of scoring a century at Cardiff drops to 18.8%, as although his record here is strong, his last ODI here came over a decade ago in 2014. The third ODI at Lord's is where Kohli's average predicted probability is the lowest, at 13.17%. This comes as no surprise given his modest ODI record at the home of cricket, coupled with the 4 years since he last took to the field here. After the England series, the next ODI fixtures for India aren't until the West Indies White Ball Tour in September. On paper, this tour is one for Kohli to savour. Virat averages 66.5 in his 41 innings against the West Indies, striking at 97.5 with a staggering 9 centuries to go along with it. Of these 41 innings, 23 were played in India, in which Kohli has a 63.25 average with 5 centuries. An interesting matchup awaits us between Virat Kohli and Alzarri Joseph. Kohli has been dismissed by the Quick 3 times in 8 innings, averaging 26, with a dot ball percentage of 42.5%. However, he strikes at 114.7. And with the ruthless approach he has taken against Quicks in recent years, across ODIs and T20s, it'll be interesting to see how this battle plays out. Among all the bowlers named in the Windies squad for the 3 ODIs versus Sri Lanka last month, Alzarri Joseph is the only bowler Kohli has faced in ODIs. This lines up a good contest between the West Indies' exciting frontline quicks who have made waves in international cricket over the last few years, in Shamar Joseph and Jayden Seales. Kohli also hasn't had a chance to face Gudakesh Moti in ODIs, and given left-arm spin has been a problem for the batter in recent years, Moti's exploits may be volatile. The first ODI is in Trivandrum, a ground where Kohli is yet to be dismissed in the 50-over format. From 2 innings, he's managed an unbeaten 33 and a mammoth unbeaten 166 against Sri Lanka in 2023, and will certainly be looking to continue his hot streak at Trivandrum. The next ODI moves to Guwahati, where Kohli's record reaches new heights once again. He's played 3 games here, of which 2 came at the new Barsapra Cricket Stadium, and recorded a century in each of his 3 innings, against New Zealand, West Indies and Sri Lanka respectively. Much like Trivandrum, with a small sample size of innings here, Kohli has been unstoppable, and his recent form looks to only make him more dangerous in the first 2 ODIs. And although the third ODI will be the first ever game to be hosted at Mulanpur, where Kohli hasn't played an ODI innings, the stage is set for Kohli to dominate against the West Indies at home this September. My models weighted match factor less for this series, given his small sample size at these venues. Below is the discrete probability distribution of Kohli's chances of scoring centuries in this 3-match ODI series at home. Across the 3 models, the simulation gives Kohli a 70% chance of scoring at least 1 century in this series, with an expected value of 0.977. On per-game predictions, Kohli has the best predicted chance at Greenfield International Stadium in the first ODI, with an average probability of 34.1%. That probability drops with each game to 32.03% in Guwahati and 29.23% in Mulanpur, where he's yet to play an ODI. We then move to India's all-format tour of New Zealand, with 5 ODI fixtures. While Kohli's overall record against the Black Caps is strong, averaging 57.48 and striking at 96.6 in 36 games, with 700s, one coming as recent as January 2026, his numbers drop when playing away from home. New Zealand is where Kohli has his second lowest ODI average by country, albeit an outstanding average of 49.66 in 13 games. It's been a relatively weaker area of Kohli's record. More importantly, he last toured New Zealand in February 2020, over 6 years ago, and will likely find the conditions far more challenging than the home series against West Indies. The open stadiums in New Zealand harbor stronger winds and aid swing and seam movement early on. Fortunately, we got a close look at how the latest version of Kohli in ODIs stacks up against New Zealand's new string of bowlers, many of whom will feature in the upcoming tour. Among these matchups includes Kohli's battle with Mitchell Santner. While the left-armer only has dismissed Kohli thrice in 17 encounters, Kohli strikes at just 69.6 against Santner, with a surprisingly modest boundary percentage of just 2.7. Kohli has historically been happy to play out Santner's overs and keep rotating the strike, but his new, more positive batting approach may look to take greater risks against the spinner. Kyle Jamieson has also been a thorn in Kohli's flesh, albeit dismissing him just once in 6 innings. Out of all active Kiwi bowlers, Kohli has the highest dot ball percentage against Kyle Jamieson at 60%. Christian Clark also troubled Kohli, dismissing him twice in 3 games in New Zealand's visit to India earlier this year. However, it seemed as though it was Kohli's intent that got the better of him on both occasions. He played onto his stumps in the first dismissal, looking to cut the ball behind square, and was caught at long off looking to clear the boundary the second time around. Kohli's played in 11 ODI innings across the 4 different venues set to host India in October. In these ODIs, he averages 9% lower and strikes 4% slower than the average top 6 batter from these games. In his last ODI tour of New Zealand, he scored 75 in 3 innings, with a high score of 51. The 3 models simulate Kohli's odds of scoring centuries in each game this series, with a verdict expecting 1.0688 centuries. Given the extra games this series, to balance the more challenging conditions, the models also predict Kohli to have a 70.2% chance to score at least one century. Interestingly, Kohli has a surprisingly high 7% predicted chance to score 3 or more centuries in this series. Could we see Virat reaching new heights away from home? On average, the models predict Kohli to have the best odds of scoring a century in the third ODI at Seton Park. Among all venues in this series, he has the best history there, with 250-plus scores from 3 ODIs, averaging 43.66. Interestingly, Model 1 is the most bullish on Kohli for this series, having the highest predicted probability of scoring a century in each of the 5 ODIs. The last tour of the calendar year is Sri Lanka's white ball visit to India in December. Kohli has scored 10 centuries against the Sri Lankans, the most he has against any one international side. He averages 60.27 in 54 innings against them. Only 13 of these innings have come at home, but he averages 83.9 with 4 centuries in these innings. His last outing against them wasn't the most memorable, however, scoring just 58 runs across 3 innings in Sri Lanka. This was also the first bilateral ODI series in 27 years where Sri Lanka beat India 2-0 in August 2024. Although Dilshan Madhushanka has been a villain for India, picking up a fifer in one of his 2 games against India, it is actually young Dunith Welalage who has the best matchup against Kohli, having dismissed him twice in just 4 encounters against the batter. The left armour even restricted Kohli to a boundary percentage of just 7.3%. Ishan Malinga poses another threat for Kohli and has been very impressive in his tenure for Sri Lanka and in T20 leagues so far, particularly in IPL 2026. His change of pace and bowling into the surface won't be something Kohli enjoys, particularly as he enjoys facing express pace and bounce. The first of 3 venues hosting Sri Lanka for ODIs this winter is the Arun Jaitley Stadium in Delhi, Kohli's home ground. In 7 innings here, he averages 55.4 with 2 50s and an unbeaten century. Excluding his most recent ODI here against Afghanistan in the 2023 ODI World Cup, Kohli averaged 50% better and struck 21% quicker than the average top 6 batter in his first 6 innings here. Although the stadium's name may have changed from the Feroz Shah Kotla, Kohli's production of runs in Delhi hasn't changed whatsoever. The second ODI will be hosted at the M. Chinnaswamy Stadium, what many consider to be Kohli's second home. Despite his exploits in the IPL though, his ODI numbers in Bengaluru failed to flatter, averaging 29 across 7 innings with 203 runs, 2 50s to go with 2 ducks. On match factor, he averages 41% worse and strikes 12% slower than the average top 6 batter in his games at the Chinnaswamy. However, he's only played 2 ODIs here in the last 6 years, both of which were his only 2 half-centuries at the venue, including his high score of 89. The series concludes in Ahmedabad, where in 6 innings at the Narendra Modi Stadium, Kohli managed just 148 runs, averaging 24.66. His last 2 games here produced his only 2 half-centuries here, striking at 89.88 in those innings. His strike rate here is close to par, 1% quicker than the average top 6 batter in these games, but he averages 80% worse. Within the probability distribution, the models had a modest prediction of only a 50% chance of Kohli scoring at least 1 century in this series. The models give him an expected value of just 0.62 in this series, despite his strong historical numbers against Sri Lanka at home. This comes from weighted matchups against some of the likely Sri Lankan bowlers across formats, bringing expectations down. All 3 ODIs in this series are given similar average odds from the 3 models of Kohli scoring a century, with his highest predicted chances of 25.47 being at Delhi. However, Kohli's newly positive batting approach will likely push him further in this series, enhancing his batting against Sri Lanka's bowling attack on pro batting surfaces. Lastly, in early 2027, Zimbabwe is set to tour India for 3 ODIs. Kohli's played just 8 ODIs and 6 innings against Zimbabwe, the last of which came in 2015. However, he averages 50 in these innings with 1 century. This means, of course, that Kohli hasn't had the opportunity to face Zimbabwe's frontline pace duo of skipper Richard Ingarava and Blessing Muzarabani in the last 3 years. Ingarava has 26 wickets in 15 innings, averaging just 22.07. Muzarabani too has shined, particularly in red ball cricket, picking up 48 wickets in his last 11 tests, averaging 25.8 since 2025. His performances even earned him a maiden IPL call-up as a replacement for the Kolkata Knight Riders in 2026. Kohli, though, will be pleased with the venues he's set to play in during this series. We begin at the Eden Gardens, where from 8 innings, Kohli has 431 runs at an average of 61.6 to go with 2 centuries, one of which came from his last game here against South Africa in the 2023 Cricket World Cup. On match factor, although Kohli scores at a rate 2% below par relative to the top 6 batters in the games here, he averages 60% better. We then move to Hyderabad for the second ODI, where Kohli averages 35.5 in 4 innings with 150. His numbers on match factor aren't too flattering either, as he averages 8% below and strikes 7% below par in these games. However, the track here has favored batting teams in recent years, particularly in T20 cricket, and the batters will look to tee off in this game, particularly Virat Kohli. The final ODI of the series and of Kohli's upcoming fixtures is at the Wankhede, the very same venue where Kohli overtook Sachin's record of 50 ODI centuries. He averages 67.7 in 8 innings in Mumbai, with 200s and 2 half-centuries. Similar to his numbers in Kolkata, although he strikes slightly below par here with a match factor strike rate of .96, he averages 48% better than the other top 6 batters in his 8 innings here. This will be a cinematic finish to Kohli's next 17 ODIs. Could the King reach his 100th century here? The models give Kohli an expected .82 centuries, with a 62.1% probability of scoring at least 1 ton during the 3-match series. However, similar to the Sri Lanka series, if Kohli is able to maintain his recent form up until this series, his punishing batting approach would put the pressure back onto Zimbabwe's bowling attack, who have little experience playing India in India. By games, the models predicted Kohli to, on average, have over a 35% chance of scoring 100 in the first and third ODIs in Kolkata and Mumbai respectively. Notably, models 2 and 3 had prominently similar predictions for all 3 games, more so than in the other series. So where does this leave Virat Kohli? After consolidating all the predictions for each game, here are the accumulated numbers from the 3 models. The models expect Kohli to score another 3.89 centuries in the upcoming 17 announced ODIs. This means if he were to finish his career after the Zimbabwe series, he would finish on approximately 89 international centuries, 11 short of Tendulkar's record. Moreover, nearly 4 centuries in 17 games means a century every 4.25 games, an incredibly impressive record that beats Kohli's career numbers of a century approximately every 5.53 games. To sustain that streak over 5 series would be a ridiculous feat in itself. Model 3's career simulation for Kohli, which assumes that he retires after these 17 games, predicts the batter to have a 0% chance of reaching 100 hundreds within his remaining games. Not surprising at all, given he would need to convert 15 of up to 17 innings into tons. However, this doesn't truly mean Kohli has no chance of reaching the illustrious 100 international centuries. Beyond the fact that these are just predictions made by my own models, there are more likely to be ODI fixtures yet to be announced, Asia Cups, more bilateral series, and of course, the monumental 2027 Cricket World Cup in South Africa next year, which Virat Kohli will be eyeing to lift. His fans and fans of cricket worldwide would certainly hope that these 17 games are not the last we see of Kohli in international cricket, especially after all he has given to the game. Until he decides to hang up the gloves, though, the looming century of centuries will be on everyone's mind. Read the full story at BailsOffCrick.com.